Hope you stay with me on my journey to become more fluent in English.
In IELTS listening, can I write everything in capital letters?
Yes, in listening as well as in IELTS reading, you should definitely start with not only the capital letter word but also every single letter of that word in capital letters. Like if the answer is letter, L-E-T-T-E-R, write all 6 letters in capital letters. The reason is that sometimes there are some bullet point fill in the blanks. It can be that there are some words and then there is a blank and there are some more words, but if the blank is in the first word, should you start with a capital letter or a small letter? It depends on the other bullet point fill in the blanks. Sometimes writers do not start with capital letters because it's not really a sentence, it's a bullet point, but sometimes writers start with capital letters in the bullet points. And sometimes some IELTS candidates, they get confused whether to capitalize one word or not. So that's why it's much better to write everything in block letters. I wrote everything in IELTS reading and listening in block letters and I got 9 in both of them.
Should I follow American English spelling or British English spelling?
First of all, spelling is very important even if you get the answer correct, but you made one mistake regarding one letter of a spelling, you will get 0 for that answer. So you can either follow British English or American English. Either is fine, but be consistent. For example, if you write center, C-E-N-T-E-R, that is the American version, then also follow the American English spelling convention for the other answers as well.
What is the difference between the 4 parts of IELTS listening?
So there are 4 sections or parts of IELTS listening. Each section has 10 questions. So in total 40 questions, as we all know. Out of 40, if you can get 30, you get a 7. So the first part of IELTS listening is it's a dialogue between maybe a salesman and a customer, or maybe you're calling a customer service person and you're on the phone. So very easy questions like your name or somebody's name, address, and some basic information will be asked, and it's usually in fill in the blanks. The second 10 questions of IELTS listening, they constitute a monologue. That means one person speaks, not a conversation but actually a monologue. The third section is again a dialogue. It's a little bit more difficult and sometimes it's an academic dialogue. Maybe it's a conversation about a group work project. And then finally, the fourth part of the IELTS listening test, the final 10 questions, they are about an academic lecture most of the time. Again, it's a monologue. So to sum up, first a monologue, then a dialogue, again a monologue, and then finally a dialogue. And the questions, they usually get harder as you get further into the test.
Talking about different types of questions and things, then what should I do during those pauses?
You see, there are many pauses throughout the IELTS listening test, and it is very, very important that you know how to use those pauses. It is one of the most important strategies I teach to my IELTS students. Let me first tell you how many pauses there are. If I explain, it will be a long video, so let me explain in short. You get one pause at the beginning. Before the IELTS listening test actually begins, you get about 1 minute and 30 seconds, 90 seconds around, more or less 5 seconds, let's say 85 to 95 seconds of pause, and then the actual audio starts. Then after 4 or 5 or 6 questions, that means in the first half of the first part, you get another 30-second pause. And then after the first part ends, that means after question 10, you get another 30-second pause. And this continues throughout the test. So during the pauses, you should not only revise your answers. For example, after question number 10, use maybe 5 or 10 seconds to revise your spelling of the answers that you have given. Not only that, but also go to the next part and try to skim, try to read quickly so that you are prepared about the next types of questions, especially if there is a map question or an MCQ, let's say an information match questions, then you should definitely highlight some important words. So that's the best strategy I think that you should use in IELTS listening.
Is it important to predict answers before the audio starts?
Yes, it is very important, and particularly in fill in the blanks questions, you can predict a lot of things about the answers. Sometimes even before the audio starts, you can get some of the answers. completely. For example, when I look at some questions, fill in the blanks questions, I can get about 50% of them even without hearing the audio. Maybe you can get 20 or 30%. At least you will understand that it's a singular noun or a plural noun. If there is an N, that means the word starts with a vowel, like an honest or an owl. So you get a lot of ideas about predictions. So before the audio starts, when you get the pauses, try to read the questions, do it fast. You will need some practice for this and try to guess. Is it a noun? Is it an adjective? What is it? Is it a number? And maybe even try to guess the exact word. So it helps a lot.
Like in map questions and also information matching questions,
Yeah.
you can predict the answers. You can guess.
And also in fill in the blanks, because there is just one word you have to guess out of the whole sentence.
Yes. What are distractors on the IELTS listening test?
Distractors are basically some traps that the exam designers, test designers, they create so that they can differentiate from moderate students and very high ranking students, high band students. Let's say the answer will be 10 seconds, but one of the speakers says, I think it will require 7 seconds. No, actually it will require 10 seconds. So what will be the answer? Is it 7 seconds or 10 seconds? It will be 10 because he corrected himself. Or maybe somebody will say that yes, I agree with this. Another person will say that no, I don't agree, I think this. So the second person's answer is actually the right answer. So the first person's answer was a distractor. So be careful of those.
Sometimes they also say, I agree with you, but I agree with this one more.
Yes, it's very confusing sometimes.
Yeah. What do I do if I miss an answer during the IELTS listening test?
So first try to predict before going to the next question's answer. If you have no idea what was the answer, then just skip it. It's better to skip one answer, because if you are stuck in that question, you may miss the next questions as well. So at least you should focus on the next question. But if you have some idea, just write something as the answer. And maybe when you have some time in the pauses, you can go back.
How many accents are used for the IELTS listening test?
Mostly the standardized accents. American English is the most common, and also British English. These two are the most common. Sometimes you may have New Zealand, Australian, you can even have some Indian English there, but they're very uncommon.
How can I complete map questions?
The map questions, if there are any map questions in your test, they will always be in the second part, which means questions 11 to 20. So before that you have some time, you have many pauses, like in the beginning you have 90 seconds of pause, and then in the middle of part 1 and after part 1 you have some pause. So you have more than 2 minutes of pause before the map questions start. So what you can do is that you can go to the map questions whenever there is some pause, and then you can see the map. You can try to highlight the important keywords or some landmarks. For example, there is a river, underline or circle that. There are 2 gates. If you didn't realize that there are 2 gates, it happened to me when I was doing some practice. I was thinking, okay, it's from here, but actually there was a gate there. I missed that, so I missed some questions in my practice. So whenever you see some landmarks like rivers, trees, parks, playgrounds, or maybe gates, entrances, you should definitely highlight them with your pencil or your highlighter. If it's a computer-based test, use the highlighter option.
Is the computer-based test better for IELTS listening?
I would say that I prefer the computer-based test, but I also sympathize with people who say that during the map questions, for example, if you have a pen and paper, then you can trace your pen over the paper, over the map, so that you understand it's the north, it's the west, it's the east. So you can trace the pen on your paper if it's a paper-based test. But my thing is that you can also do that with your mouse. If it's a computer-based test, you can also do that with the mouse. Also, many people say that there is no extra time after the listening test ends in the computer-based test. But what will you do with the extra time? The audio clip will not play further, and you will have 2 minutes. I think 2 minutes are more than enough to check your spelling. After the test ends, you will have 2 minutes in the computer-based test. So I suggest that it's like 50-50. For the listening part, it doesn't really matter which version you take, either the computer-based or the paper-based. But for the other modules, the computer-based test is by far the best. You can watch that video after you're done with this one.